Hey guys, welcome. Today we are installing the dual mass flywheel, the clutch and pressure plate, bolting it all up, getting it ready to go so that we can install the transmission. So this is one of our last steps. Time to install the dual mass flywheel. There is a pin that sticks out here that you have to line up with the new flywheel. And of course, you have to be very careful when you're doing this whole process because I hear that it's extremely easy to drop the flywheel. Not that I would know anything about that. Anyway, keep your head clear of the flywheel. The flywheel is a critical part. All your power is going through the flywheel, and these bolts are really highly torqued. So they recommend that you always replace the flywheel bolts when you're replacing the flywheel. So I've got new flywheel bolts, new flywheel. Gonna pop this guy on here. There we go. Required a little bit of convincing to get on that pen. Once again, this is a T55 torque socket. I'm going to put a little bit of removable Loctite on these bolts. As I said before, these bolts are pretty critical to the operation of your vehicle. Now in this first stage, I'm just going to snug these bolts up. It's critical that you tighten them in stages slowly so that you don't damage anything. All right, just make sure they're all snug. Notice this crisscross pattern? I'm gonna use this crisscross pattern the entire time I'm tightening. So I'll snug that up, and then I'll go to the one opposite and snug that up. And then I'll go to this one next, and then the one opposite that. All right, at this point, before I start torquing things, I'm gonna lock the flywheel into place. And this time, I am going to do it correctly. Because when I took it off, I didn't really do it right. You can just kind of fashion any kind of chain or strap. So, here's one of the bolts that holds the transmission on. Here's one of the old bolts for the pressure plate, and a chain connecting them, and that'll keep the flywheel from rotating. So that's locked in place. I'm gonna begin torquing them to 25 Newton meters, but I'm gonna do it in stages. I'm not gonna torque each bolt to 25 Newton meters. I'm gonna start much lower and work up. Now, getting the torque right on these is absolutely critical. So much so that I bought this little torque adapter. It's a digital torque adapter. It's calibrated to be accurate because I don't really like the click style torque wrenches I have. And this is highly accurate and easy to use. So I'm very pleased with this investment. It should allow me to get each of these bolts dead on. And they need to be because they spin at high speeds and hold a lot of force. So first stage, I think I'll torque to about 12 Newton meters. And I'm using the same crisscross pattern. Okay, they all have about 12 Newton meters. Now, I think I'll take it up to maybe 18 Newton meters of torque using the same cross pattern. Okay, everyone's got 18 Newton meters. I think it's fine to take it all the way up to 25 Newton meters. Okay, everyone now has 25 Newton meters of torque. That is equivalent to 19 foot-pounds. So now, to correctly torque this, the second stage is to give each of these an additional 120 degrees of rotation. To do that, I printed out a degree measurement, which will hopefully work. Got a little bit of double-sided tape on there. So, put a little red mark on the bolt, put my degree measurement here. I'm going to turn that red mark from 0 degrees to 120 degrees. Or that's the plan. Yeah, I'm going to stop myself right there. A lot of people talked about taping a little angle guide to the flywheel and turning it. And while that will work, it's a crap idea because you can't get 120 degrees of additional rotation all in one go, or at least you probably shouldn't. Instead, you have to turn it maybe 20 or 30 degrees and then go in a crisscross pattern and turn them all in 20 or 30 degrees, and then go back to the original one and turn it 20 or 30 degrees more, and then do it all again in a crisscross pattern and keep going as I'm explaining here. And if you're trying to tape and untape this thing all the time and line it up each time, it's a pain and you'll get really frustrated, as I did. It's a huge waste of time. So instead, skip that entirely. What you should do from the beginning is take your angle guide and take 2 colored Sharpies, place your angle guide over the bolt. Don't worry about taping it down or anything like that. Take the black marker or whatever color you happen to have and make a mark from the bolt onto the flywheel at your starting angle. Then take your other colored Sharpie, go 120 degrees from there, and make a second mark on the flywheel. When you do this, you'll have a black mark at your starting point on the bolt and the flywheel, and a red mark at your ending point on the flywheel. And you know you're done when the black mark turns all the way to the red mark. Simple. And this I found was so much easier because once you do this with all the bolts in the beginning, you just tighten them in a crisscross pattern and you're completely done with this crap. Okay, should be pretty smooth sailing from here on out. Let's get back under there and torque the rest of those bolts. Ow. Fucking hell, that's knackered. Right. Interesting side note, those bolts take a lot of torque. A lot of torque. I had kind of a cheap torque socket, and the amount of torque that it takes to give those bolts 120 degrees of extra rotation actually twisted my torque socket and was painful, as you saw. So I just had to run down to an auto parts place and get this guy. This is an impact rated Torx wrench, so it's much stronger and higher quality, and it worked a lot better and it didn't break. If you're planning on doing this project, I would make sure you have an impact rated Torx socket from the start. Again, a T55 one, and a large breaker bar. This is a 24-inch breaker bar, or a breaker bar and a short cheater bar. It does have to be short enough to fit under your car if you're doing it in the garage on jack stands like I am. So, large breaker bar, impact rated Torx wrench. That's the ticket. Once that's done, I also made sure that the surface of the dual mass flywheel is perfectly clean. The clutch plate makes direct contact with this, and any kind of oil or grease will ruin the clutch and cause it to not function correctly. So I made sure it was perfectly clean. Here is my clutch plate. It is directional, so it goes on like that, with the larger part of the flange facing out. There's also a marker on here that says gearbox side. So it goes on like that. And this plastic tool comes with the clutch kit, and it helps you hold this clutch plate perfectly center, because once you install the pressure plate, you can't move it, and it must be centered for the transmission to slide on properly. So that's put on there like that. Now to install the pressure plate. Okay, there are 3 studs, so make sure you get those on there. This is centered, everything looks good. So now to install the bolts. These are also bolts like the flywheel that must be replaced. You have to use new bolts when you do this. These bolts are torqued a lot. I have a ton of torque on them, and they're extremely critical, so they must be replaced every time. So once again, crisscross pattern in several stages. First stage, just kind of getting things snug. Okay, all bolts are snugged down. Now it's time to start torquing them. The final torque is going to be 23 Newton meters, but again, I'm going to kind of sneak up on that, maybe 6 or 8 Newton meters of torque, and then 12 or 14, 18, and gradually work my way up to 23 Newton meters. Okay, everyone's at 23 Newton meters. So you can go ahead and pull this out, and you'll see the clutch plate stays perfectly center. It's totally locked in place. And now when the spline of the transmission slides in, it'll go right in where it's supposed to. Dual mass flywheel's on, clutch is on, and it's time to slide the transmission on here. All right, guys, thanks for watching. It's been awesome. I'm really excited. We're very close to wrapping up this whole project. Just gotta slide the transmission back on, exhaust, plates, we're done. I think maybe one more video, and that will be the entire IMS and clutch job from start to finish. After that, I will finally get around to talking about the special tools I used, and the cost and the time of the entire project. We'll take a moment and kind of give an overview of the whole thing. So all that's coming up. If you want to see more, make sure you're subscribed, and also like and comment on the video. It really helps me out. Thanks, guys.